Hey y'all, welcome to a new episode of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast with your girl Stephanie Hardy. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, welcome and thank you for joining me on this journey of talking about all the things I love about professional wrestling and news and gossipish and various trends and stuff like that. And I hope you continue to stay on this journey with me as I grow as a wrestling fan. And if this isn't your first time listening to the show, thank you for continuing to support me, the show, the brand, and all of the above. So this episode is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to be talking about, of course, news and gossipish that happened during the week, this past week. And I'm going to be talking about all of my feelings involving the Royal Rumble that just passed a couple of weekends ago. There was a lot of crazy stuff that happened, so I did want to address my feelings about it because a lot of people were very opinionated about this Royal Rumble. But I just want to, put in my 2 cents, if I can. And then I'm going to talk about what I enjoyed in wrestling this week instead of doing a full weekly recap like I normally do. So with that in mind, sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. Welcome and enjoy yourself and chill out. All right, so here is news and gossipish for February, for like the first week of February, really. Wow, it's really the second month of the year already, and it's Black History Month, so there is that. And of course, I hope you've been enjoying. If you follow me on social media on @Hardy Wrestling Podcast and on Twitter @Hardy Wrestle Pod, I hope you've been enjoying the posts that I've been making about Black History Month and various people who have made history in terms of Black wrestlers from the past, present, and the future. I have been doing a lot of present wrestlers or a lot of past wrestlers who have since retired and stuff like that. Like today I did post about Awesome Kong. But I hope to post more about more Black wrestlers of the past and, of course, give, proper due to those of the present as well. So wherever you are, I hope that if you are listening in the United States, rather, it is Black History Month. And I hope that you are taking this time to really learn about the contributions of various African and African American wrestlers around the country and even around the world. And I hope that you continue to do it all year round and not just confine it to just this one month. But I am proud of this month, seeing as Dr. Carter G. Woodson invented it, and he and I graduated from the same undergraduate college, Berea College. Shout out to them in Kentucky. So it's always a proud time to celebrate your heritage. With that in mind, we're going to go to news and gossip-ish, and we're going to start by talking about Naya Jackson, who has been, Lena Finene, who was formerly known as Naya Jackson in WWE before, of course, they released her. She's had a lot to say. She had a very interesting and revealing interview on Renee Paquette, aka Renee Young's podcast called The Sessions. It's a really good show, and she interviews a lot of people, including a lot of wrestlers as well. And one of the things that Nia Jax did talk about was her talking about how it would hurt whenever people online would blame her for the injury of certain superstars. Now, of course, she had gained this reputation from either hurting some people. There was one instance where Kairi Sane, who used to work for the company, was saying that she wasn't set, and then she threw her into, I believe, a turnbuckle during the first part of the pandemic era. And then, of course, there was the incident involving Becky Lynch in 2018 ahead of Survivor Series when she broke her nose by hitting her in the nose and then breaking it, and then Becky Lynch turned it into a moment where she had a bloody nose and a bloody face, and she made the best of it, and that's basically what propelled her into a level of stardom. So this was her talking about, her hurting people, and she said, quote, "Anybody who knows me in the locker room, I know that I was so much bigger than everybody, and I know that I'm a lot stronger," she began by saying. She said, Coach Sarah Amato, who works, or at least maybe used to work in the PC, I'm not sure if she still works in the PC, had always said, "You always have to be aware because you are so much bigger that you're throwing your arm and hitting somebody in the face is not going to be the same as somebody smaller than you. I was always conscious of that. I always tried to take pride. I worked with Alexa Bliss, for most of my career. She's so tiny. She trusted me. It hurt when people were like, she injures everybody. In my career, I know I've injured 2 people. Obviously, Becky was one of them. There is another one. I don't want to call her out, but I know I did. I profusely apologized. Other things, they made like a whole YouTube about certain things. Hey, guess what? We get in there and we're going 300 days a year, and not all my moves are going to look super clean and smooth, but I'm not injuring people or purposely going out to hurt people. That's what hurt me the most. I consciously make an effort to make sure I can make everybody look good and keep it safe, and make sure we all get out laughing and have a good time and all of that. But basically, she was trying to make sure that everybody was safe, and she was reiterating that it wasn't her intention to hurt people and stuff like that. And I can say that there have been times where me and other people have probably come down on her hard in terms of her in-ring quality, in terms of how she may have hit people or injured people or stuff like that. Or maybe in some cases even injured herself. You never know. I mean, wrestling is not necessarily this thing where you just, do it and, it's just something you just do and you just, bounce off of it, and just bounce back from it so easily. Like, it is an athletic sport, which, I hate whenever anybody who doesn't know that much about wrestling will call it fake, because it's definitely not fake. And if it's done the wrong way, you can hurt someone and you can hurt yourself. And we did kind of come down really hard on Naya Jackson in years in which she was a wrestler in WWE. And I personally want to apologize for the moments where, if there were any moments where I may have said anything mean or derogatory or kind of harsh about Nia Jax, hurting someone or stuff like that. Or if I've even said anything on social media. I mean, I want to apologize for that. But at the same time, wrestling is a sport, and in a sport you can get hurt. And as she did say later on in the interview, that Becky Lynch took it like a champ and basically wasn't, tripping about it the way everybody else was. Like, she said, no, it's okay, I'm fine. And then they took her straight to medical, and they played it up, for that Survivor Series in which Becky Lynch had to chose Charlotte Flair to ultimately fight against Ronda Rousey, who was the Raw Women's Champion at the time for that Survivor Series. So either way, it wound up working out. And Nia Jax, of course, still wound up working for the company for a few more years until, of course, she got released. And she sounds like she's in a good place. She's in a healthy place. And she's happy, even as she's still figuring out, what's next. She's bought property and stuff, in terms of like farming and everything. So Nia / Lena seems like she's really in a good place, and that's really all that matters. But we're not wrestlers, so it's kind of hard for us as fans and journalists to sort of talk about, oh well, they shouldn't have done this and they shouldn't have done that, when we really don't know what it's like to be in a ring and don't know what it's like to hit somebody in terms of a combat sport like that. So maybe we should just chill and give people a little bit of grace, and that's what Nia needs. So I hope she's, being her best self and living her best life since she's been gone. But I do kind of miss her though. But yeah. And then she also talked about how they did try to call her for the Royal Rumble, but she said no. So go listen to that interview if you haven't had a chance. It's really good. Also in the news, we have Mustafa Ali, who, of course, a few weeks ago requested his release from WWE because he feels like the vision that he has for himself as a wrestler would not be greatly executed in WWE, so he requested it. But it was revealed that the company has no plans to grant him that release, and it was noted that value was a term used in the reasoning behind the decision to keep Ali under contract. So in an update, Fightful Select reported that Ali actually has well over a year at least left on his WWE contract, but there's no word on the exact expiration date. And then we also found out that when a lot of people were asking him if he was going to be in the Men's Royal Rumble, he tweeted and said, he's not interested in being the Royal Rumble, but that he wants his released. So he is definitely not interested in participating in anything WWE has going on. He is ready to go. And there were people on social media who were tweeting and talking about, hashtag free Ali. Even on AEW this week, you had people out in front with signs that said hashtag free Ali and t-shirts that said hashtag free Ali, especially since they were in Chicago, which is where Mustafa Ali is really from. So here's hoping that maybe if creative finds something for him to do, that maybe they can agree on it. But if he truly wants to be let go, they really just should let him go and just let him be happy wherever he's going to be at. So yeah, he's really talented and he deserves to show off, whatever he has to show off, for that time. But yeah, it's kind of hard because he's so good, but it's okay. Also in the news, we have Ronda Rousey, of course, who came back and made her return in the Women's Royal Rumble, and she won the Women's Royal Rumble, and I'll have more to say about that later on in my reactions to the Royal Rumble as a whole. But she came back 4 months after giving birth, right? And a lot of people were wondering, some people were wondering how is it that she was able to come back so fast and everything. But she took to Twitter to thank Ember Moon, Athena, who was formerly known as Ember Moon in the WWE before she got released. And she tweeted her, thanking her by saying, "Thank you for helping me get ready for Royal Rumble 2022 at Athena Palmer _FG. If you want her to train you too, check out her school, thewrestlingdojo.com." So Athena was one of the people who were let go from WWE last year, and she was lost in the shuffle. And she is a free agent now after her 90-day non-compete clause expired. And she's already booked in a match against an AEW wrestler, I believe in another independent company. So I'm glad to see that Athena is still, of course, training and helping people, still be the best wrestlers that they can be at her wrestling school. And the sky's the limit for her career, because it's like I always say, WWE is not the end goal. You can wrestle and have success elsewhere. So it seems like Athena is well on her way for that. But it's good to know that she was actually a part of the success that Ronda Rousey shared and basked in at the Royal Rumble this last Saturday. So that was cool. Also, Athena released a statement talking about her WWE release on her Twitch channel. She said, "Without WWE, I wouldn't be where I am today. I got to travel the world, meet amazing people, and make amazing friends that are going to be with me for a lifetime. At the end of the day, I don't think it's all bad. Every time I look at the negatives, and there were plenty, trust me, the positives outweigh that. There is no use in being mad. I feel very sorry for my friends that did get let go too early. What I mean by that is those men and women that never got an opportunity to showcase themselves on the level that I know they can showcase themselves. That's part of the reason why I feel like it's not fair for me to come on here and bitch and moan and whine. It's not fair. Where I had the opportunity to wrestle on Raw, SmackDown, and NXT and become a champion and did a lot with my career, it's not fair when those of my friends barely got started." And she admitted that, of course, patience is a virtue in terms of her not being able to compete after her 90 days, which, of course, have passed. And she said, "I felt like a lot of self-reflection about what I could have done differently. I feel like I wouldn't have changed anything. I felt for some time I was just stagnant. There was no opportunity to grow at times." So it's good to know that Athena / Ember Moon isn't in a negative or bitter place about it. And it is valid for her to feel sorry for those superstars who were let go after working so hard, and then were let go and didn't even have the chance to start. Like, seriously, like, there were a lot of people who didn't really have that much of a chance to start. Like, Frankie Monet, she was in NXT, and she had maybe one NXT Women's Championship match, and she really didn't do that much. And you have, of course, all of Hit Row, who got brought up to SmackDown, and they got let go because of a whole bunch of other negative stuff, and it's just crazy when you see the amount of talent that they have let go of who never really had a chance. But I wish the very best for all those people, including Athena / Ember Moon as well. Also in the news, in terms of news and gossipish, we have this crazy story about Shane McMahon and his WWE departure / firing or whatever, which I think is funny because I never thought a McMahon could really be officially fired from the WWE, but it's looking like that's what happened. So, of course, we saw Shane McMahon in the men's Royal Rumble match, and so Vince McMahon reportedly decided to cancel creative plans for Shane. And of course it was reported about him being a surprise entrant in the Royal Rumble and was reportedly brought in to help produce the match as well. And then after several apparent behind the scenes issues, Ringside News, who you have to take with a grain of salt these days, reported that Shane was quietly let go from WWE, and Dave Meltzer, who you also have to take with another grain of salt, confirmed the report. So, and also Wade Keller from PW Torch provided more information on what led to Shane essentially being removed from WWE. He said Shane was self-centered on the day of the Royal Rumble and was primarily worried about his own ideas and how he could look strong in the Rumble match. And he also stated that Shane pulled the McMahon card and went way overboard, which led to some pushback from some within the company. And also that Shane took issue with the plans in place for him at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, as he was originally supposed to be part of the chamber match for the WWE Championship. And it was at that point that Vince reportedly decided he had had enough and wrote Shane out of the plans for Elimination Chamber and WrestleMania. Now, we haven't really seen him fight. I mean, before the Royal Rumble this year, we hadn't seen Shane be involved in anything outside of with Braun Strowman, who has also been released. And this is really bizarre to me because, but then at the same time, everything can't be all about you. Like, there are like 29 other men in this match, and these 29 other men, a lot of them have excuse me, a lot of them have worked really hard, to gain this opportunity in the Royal Rumble. And for you to be the producer, and try to make everything about you, if any of this is really true, because of course this is gossip-ish and we don't necessarily know what's real and what's not, because of course we're not backstage or whatever. We don't know everything. I don't know everything. But if this is true, it's not necessarily fair for you to make everything about you when you're the one producing it and you're trying to make yourself look good. Because in wrestling, something that I'm learning is that it's what you're doing a lot of is you're doing what you can to make the other person look good. It's a team effort. And anytime you take that narcissistic view and try to put it on yourself, it's just kind of like, it just doesn't make you look good. And if that's what led to him being possibly let go from the company, then I don't necessarily blame them. But at the same time, there's always two sides to every story, and the truth is always in the middle. So it's a shame because a lot of people really love Shane McMahon. Because at the end of the day, on television, we always love to see the McMahons on TV because they've been in front of us our whole lives. But, it's really a shame. And I hope that they can figure stuff out and, have peace and stuff. But this isn't really the first time Shane McMahon has been sort of in and out of WWE in terms of, beefing and a difference of interest and stuff like that. So maybe they'll come to peace and then they'll figure everything else out. Hopefully. Also in the news, we had you had Patrick Clark, aka formerly known as the Velveteen Dream, who was one of my favorite wrestlers in NXT and somebody who I really thought had a lot of potential to be a top star, but got let go due to some crazy stuff. He spoke with a show called Dishing Drama with Dana Wilkie about what happened in WWE to lead to him being let go. And he addressed the accusations that were put against him towards the end of his career. And this included the claims that he sent a naked photo to an underage fan. And he said, well, first of all, I think they got my nude, my personal private picture. I think they got it from someone off the internet. I'm trying to get laid like everybody else. I'm not going to sit here. I try to represent myself well. Essentially, I sent he basically said a penis pic, sorry guys, over Tinder, but he didn't say a penis pic. He said not just Tinder, but there are plenty of dating apps out there. And again, I'm trying to get laid like anybody else, which is a very personal thing to say in an interview, but okay. I've been with WWE since I was 18. And again, if you know me, I take my job very seriously. There have been plenty of times where I have given up the opportunity to go and hang with friends in nice cities just because I'm exhausted. Not just from all the thought that I would put in, but the physical wear and tear. At the end of the day, I want somebody to keep me warm too. I'd like to invite someone to my bed, and if I've got to send a picture to do that, that's what I'm doing. But it's important to understand that I am not sending this to anyone on Reddit. I am not sending this to anyone underage, and I am most certainly not using my verified social media that is only to represent my WWE character to solicit anything from anyone, whether it be sex, money, it doesn't matter. And he also claimed that the company tried to come up with a different way to use him, which would have been like the Velveteen Dream appearing in a mask and not speaking at all. He also said, just so you know, WWE definitely considered bringing me in with a mask and having me not speak. So I have definitely had some ideas in the back pocket for something like that. When it came to the allegations made against him, WWE opted not to mention anything on camera when the Velveteen Dream was brought back. However, that isn't what he wanted to do, as he hoped to talk about it. He said that he wanted to address it. WWE didn't want to even touch it, but I felt like if you're going to be on TV in this day and age, you have to at least shed some type of light on it. You don't have to go into detail, but you should definitely address it, because you do have that audience that is always going to want an answer. And this is interesting because he released one statement and it was very vague. It was like a really big pamphlet and it was really vague. But at the same time, him talking about it on this interview, I think a lot of what happened was the fact that there were a lot of people on social media who were still pushing for him to get fired just because he was accused. And I know that it's kind of, and this was also in light of the speaking out movement as well. And there were a lot of people who were, getting revealed to have, underhanded tactics as to how they treated women in terms of wrestling, backstage and at work and stuff like that. And all of those people were basically, handled and not, I don't want to say thrown away, but released, and WWE didn't have anything to do with it. Like, that was a part of the reason why NXT UK had to go through a revamping period, because a lot of their stars were revealed to have done some of those terrible things in the speaking out movement. And something that I thought was really funny was the fact that when it came to the whole speaking out movement, a lot of people in WWE who had anything to do with that or were investigated and they found something of them, they were immediately let go. But even with the people who were investigated and nothing was found, with the Velveteen Dream being one of them, there was people still pushing for him to get fired. And it's strange to me because you have a publicly traded company, and I know they've done some underhanded things in the past, and I'm not even going to pretend that WWE hasn't done anything crazy in the past, because they have. But in this day and age, seeing as this is 2022 and this is a publicly traded company, why in the world, and then with them investigating people and getting rid of the people who actually had something evil going on, why would they not do that, for Velveteen Dream? And then he was still on television, but even then people were still hoping for him to get fired. It was just really weird for me, because it was almost like I didn't know what to truly believe. It's like I still wanted to hold out hope that maybe Patrick Clark wasn't doing all this crazy stuff and sending his pictures to underage children, but then there was still, the groundswell of people who were still pushing for him to get fired, which ultimately happened. And it's so sad because he worked so hard, his entire life, like since he was 18, to, be on WWE. He was on Tough Enough, like the same way that Mandy and Sonya were. Like, if not the same season they were on there. And he had been working really hard to craft this character. And this character was everything. But it was all taken down all because, you know, he posted his pictures and stuff like that. And somebody took it and made it a thing. But I don't condone any form of abuse, especially any form of sexual abuse. I really don't. But at the same time, if nothing about you was found to be guilty, then why were we still crucifying him? That's all I'm saying. But I really hope that somewhere down the line, he can, you know, find his way back to wrestling and still be the star that we know that he can be in a healthy way. So yeah, it's crazy, but we'll see. Also in the news, we have Keith Lee, who got married today. So congratulations to him and Mia Yim for getting married today, because somebody released a picture of them and they looked so beautiful. So Keith Lee, who is now a free agent, who also got released from WWE, sadly enough, is reportedly expected to sign with AEW, according to Dave Meltzer, of course. There have been discussions regarding Keith Lee joining AEW and that he may have already signed a contract. If you may or may not know, Keith Lee was released in November and that his 90-day compete clause has expired as of Wednesday. And it's so sad for me because there was so much that he could have done in WWE and so much, of course, that his wife could have done as well. Like, this dude was an NXT champion and he was an NXT North American champion at the same time. There were a lot of great moments that he gave us in the Black and Gold brand at that time. So to watch him get let go was really devastating. But at the same time, I mean, what are you really going to do after that point? So if he does decide to sign with AEW, I won't necessarily blame him because, hey, that's a TV deal. That's money. That's something that you're used to. And hey, do what makes you happy. So if he does pop up on AEW next week, 2 weeks from now, whenever, it will be cool. So I'm just here for the success of Keith Lee at this point because he's limitless. And I hope he gets another theme song that's just as cool as the one he had in NXT because, that was awesome. That was very, very whimsical. And congratulations to him and Mia Yim again on their nuptials. Love is in the air everywhere you look around. And finally, in the news, you have AEW being set to release their album called, I believe, what is it? Yeah, called Who We Are, A Celebration of Excellence, Volume 1. It's going to arrive on February the 18th, Friday, February the 18th. And this is in celebration of Black History Month. They have a lot of different people on the album in music who are legends in music and those who are just getting started, who are a part of the album to help tell the stories of many of AEW's African American roster members. So Mikey Ruckus, who is AEW's in-house producer, executive produced their first full-length album, and Bootsy Collins appears on the introduction of the album as well, which I think is cool because he was sprinkled throughout the Silk Sonic album, An Evening with Silk Sonic. So I think that's pretty interesting that he's just getting around like that. But hey, I'm never gonna say no to Bootsy Collins, baby. So basically it was said that by Patty Collins, Bootsy's wife and president of the Bootsy Collins Foundation, that Bootsy helped define early on what it meant to be a Black entertainer in America, and that Bootsy's involvement in this project is a perfect convergence of the past, present, and future, and we are grateful to have the chance to continue inspiring future musicians as the album's beneficiary. So the album, A Celebration of Excellence, will be available exclusively in hard copy format on shopaew.com before hitting streaming platforms at a later date, and the proceeds of the sale of the project will benefit the Bootsy Collins Foundation, which works to inspire, educate, and enrich the lives of individuals from all backgrounds through music. And Mikey Ruckus released a statement saying, "One key aspect of my role in AEW is to deliver a multifaceted audio experience for fans that delves into the essence of the characters they see on screen every week, as well as the stories behind the individuals who bring these characters to life." So I'm really looking forward to hearing this. And he also said, "Who we are is like a bunch of 30 for 30 episodes for AEW's Black wrestlers. Releasing this project during Black History Month in a format that is authentic to the culture and resonates in a familiar manner, while allowing these incredible talents to share their personal journeys is special for everyone involved." And it includes contributions from artists like John Connor, Mega Ran, who I learned about on an episode of a Jobber Tears podcast. Shout out to them. Brinson, Omega Sparks, Mont Easy, who actually did the Jobber Tears theme song. Shout out to him. And Josiah Williams, who did their remix of their theme song and did my theme song as well. So, and then of course, Max Caster and Sonny Kiss will be featured on the album as well. So I'm really looking forward to listening to this album and hearing the stories of a lot of the people who are on the AEW roster who identify as Black. And I'm also looking forward to watching AEW, reach out more to Black people in their fan base as well, because diversity is something that they have struggled with in the past. So I am looking forward to them doing more to reach out to us in terms of a fandom as well. So it's going to be cool. And I'm really looking forward to all of the talent that's on the album as well. So that's going to be cool. So yeah, that's all for news and gossipish. And now I'm going to go into talking about my feelings about this past Royal Rumble. All right, so now we've reached a part of the podcast where I talk about my feelings about the Royal Rumble from 2022. Of course, the Royal Rumble holds a special place in my heart because it was the 2020 Royal Rumble that basically set the road to the start of me starting the wrestling podcast. This was shortly before the pandemic hit. We had no clue what was on the horizon, even though that day was already a crazy day to begin with. But that Royal Rumble and then all the other things basically coalesced to helping me start the Hardy Wrestling Podcast as it exists now. And the Royal Rumble has a special place in my heart. But this one had me all up in my feelings in terms of like a lot of complications. A lot of people won, a lot of people lost, and a lot of people were angry about the people who won and lost. And I had to really sit with it for a while before I decided to come on this platform and talk about how I felt about everything. So I'm going to talk about all the stuff that I really liked. And I did kind of like, well, first of all, I did kind of like the match involving the grit couple, that's Edge and Beth Phoenix, versus the It couple with Miz and Maurice. Like, I was really surprised to see a lot of the stuff that Maurice was doing, considering during her time as a diva and then during the Divas era and as a two-time Divas champion, there was a lot of athleticism that they weren't necessarily allowed to show during that time. So to see her be able to adapt to what would make a great wrestling match or a mixed tag team match now, it was still pretty fascinating to see. And I really feel like, she did a pretty good job, given that she was probably the least experienced, and that's no shade at her, but the least experienced, in the match. She did what she had to do, even though she kept running from Beth a lot of the time. But there were a couple of spots where I did enjoy, her and her athleticism. And of course, the Miz was gonna Miz and Edge was gonna Edge. And seeing Beth Phoenix back in the ring was really cool too. Like, it made me, and then I loved how both teams' gears matched. Like, the It couple came out dressed in all red, looking like blood, like looking like a fresh picture of Kool-Aid. Like, they were looking so pretty. And then you had Edge and Beth Phoenix come out dressed in blue leather and stuff like that. And then you had Beth Phoenix paying tribute to Luna Vachon with her makeup and everything. Like, it was absolutely gorgeous. And I just love that, because I just love it when couples match. So I really enjoyed that match, and the right people won there. But this was, mainly a fun match here. Which was basically an extension of the Edge and the Miz feud that started at the very beginning of the year, which led to day one and stuff. So I enjoyed it for what it was. And it also made me miss Mixed Match Challenge. If you may or may not remember what that is, that was when the WWE Network was a thing. And then after SmackDown would go off, they would show about maybe a half hour or maybe an hour show on the WWE Network where they would have teams, fight in this tournament to sort of win money for the charity of their choice and stuff. So basically that was what was going on, and it's really cool. And I really enjoyed that match. And I really hope that somewhere down the line, if they care about our feelings, the Mixed Match Challenge would come back. But all in all, I enjoyed the It couple versus the Grit couple. Now, when the pay-per-view started, it started with Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns for the Universal title. And when it came to this feud, a part of me was really hoping that maybe it wouldn't be Seth that would be fighting Roman. A part of me really wanted it to be Big E, simply because of the fact that Big E, ate the pin at day one, and lost his title to Brock Lesnar, which means that he's the second New Day member to lose the WWE title to Brock Lesnar next to Kofi Kingston. But Big E fought valiantly in that match, and it's just like, even though he wasn't able to qualify to get another opportunity for the WWE title because they went with Brock versus Bobby and stuff, and I'll talk about that later, it was just, I was hoping it would be Big E, but nope, it was Seth Rollins. And something that did irritate me during their feud was just the fact that Seth Rollins just kept talking about how Roman Reigns, needed help to get where he is now as the tribal chief. But at the same time, Seth is also acting like we didn't see him running up with the Authority and stabbing Dean Ambrose / Jon Moxley and Roman Reigns in the back all that time, which they did address on the SmackDown before the Royal Rumble. And how Roman really didn't forgive Seth Rollins for that. So Seth was really trying to get in his head by playing with his emotions. So after Roman made his entrance, by himself, because the Usos couldn't be by his side at ringside because they lost their match. And of course, Paul Heyman, wasn't by his side either, but we'll get to that later too. He was out there by himself. So Seth Rollins decided to make an entrance, but it wasn't just any entrance, not his normal entrance where he's out there with a crazy suit and telling everybody to sing his song. No, he came out there with the Shield music and dressed up in Shield gear. And it was the most pettiest thing I had ever seen ever happen in WWE so far. Like, oh my God, I just never saw anything like that before. Like, I grabbed my chest as I was watching it with my boyfriend. I was just like, oh my God, the emotional damage. It was too much. It was just so petty. And Jock, my boyfriend, shout out to him, he actually said, okay, Roman has to shoe him now because this is just too much. And other people shared that sentiment online as well, but it was really funny. But and then you had Roman just kind of staring at him like he had the audacity to do that to him. And the story that was being told was like, you could tell that it really did get to him. But after that point, their match was pretty good, but I hated the way that it ended. Like, it was really good. It was like Seth was able to had an answer for everything that Roman had going on. But it was just like the way that it ended with Roman choking Seth out and Seth reaching the rope but not being able to lift his hands at the end. It felt very unfinished to me. And my thing is, it's like, it feels like every other fight that Roman has had, whether he's had help or not, it's always ended in a decisive manner. And for this one to not end in a decisive manner just kind of left me a little bit disappointed. But I was still happy that Roman Reigns still won, because I just can't imagine Roman being a tribal chief without the Universal title. He's the tribal chief and the head of the table and the king of us all. So I just don't want to see him lose it. So, yeah. But it's looking like he just might because of all the stuff that took place afterward. And it's looking like Seth might be, sniffing for him, maybe. But he did kind of go back on Raw this past Monday, and it looked like maybe he's not going after him anymore. But he's more so going after Bobby for Elimination Chamber. So, yeah, it's just pretty strange how this is happening now. But either way, the psychology of the match was really good. And the mind games of the match was really good. But I just hated how it ended. But, y'all don't care about my feelings. They've made that clear. So it's okay. Then we had Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley. And this match was sort of everything you kind of hoped it would be, outside of the ending, of course, because this was like a dream match that a lot of people have been sort of fantasy booking for a very long period of time, because a lot of people really felt like Bobby was Brock's equal in terms of athleticism and in terms of past accolades in various forms of in various forms of sports, in terms of, them wrestling in high school or wrestling, in college. And it just seemed like they had a lot of parallels when it comes to their athleticism. And a lot of people were wondering, how would that go? And so we were able to see this here. And the match was really, really good. Like, I was enjoying it. I was enjoying these big, beefy men, these big, meaty men slapping meat. Like, it was really good. But the way it ended really surprises me, in the sense that you had, like, Roman Reigns coming out there to punch freaking Brock Lesnar, and then the referee was knocked out simply because of Brock Lesnar giving Bobby Lashley a suplex and them bumping into him, the referee or whatever. And then after that point, you're sort of just wondering what's going to go on now. And Roman punched Brock in the face, basically screwed him over. And then in a surprising but not surprising turn of events, you had Paul Heyman hand Roman Reigns the WWE Championship and basically like hit Brock in the head with it, and Bobby capitalized off of that and pinned Brock Lesnar in order to become the new WWE champion. And this left Brock Lesnar seething. And then on top of that, Paul Heyman walked away with Roman Reigns with his prayer hands, as if to say, you're my tribal chief and I'm with you now, and not with Brock. And oh my God, this story, I know there are a lot of people who feel like it might get boring or stale, but it still interests me in the sense that it's like Paul Heyman, for how brilliant he is as a wrestling mind and as a businessman, he is being portrayed. This is like the perfect portrayal of an abused lover who just escaped an abusive relationship only to turn back. And this isn't, and I guess this should be like a trigger warning or something. And I'm really sorry if I'm bringing back some horrible memories for you if you're listening to this, but it's just, Paul is really giving off the impression that he was in an abusive relationship with Roman, and he left that abusive relationship to go back to his one true love, who is Brock, but then left Brock because he felt like everything was going to be good with Roman again. Like, oh, he's changed and all this other stuff. And it's just so sad. But, we'll talk about everything that happened on SmackDown later. But Jesus Christ, it doesn't stop interesting me. I still think it's interesting. Like, it is like the juiciest soap opera on the planet. Like, it's just really good. So Papa Paul needs to get himself together. And Roman Reigns is just going to be evil, but he's gorgeous and evil, and I'm just going to be here for it. That sounds so bad, but that's just where I am in life right now. Yeah, just send me good vibes and good energy. But either way, that's just where I am right now. Roman is still the Universal Champion, and Brock lost his title, but he somehow got another opportunity on Monday, and we'll get to that. But yeah, like, that was crazy. And then you had Becky Lynch versus Dewdrop for the Raw Women's Championship, and the way it was, like, this one was placed, I believe, like, I don't know, I forgot exactly where this was placed on the card, but it was placed in a really awkward space. Like, where was it? I believe it was right after the Women's Royal Rumble, yeah. And it was just, it was just there. And it makes me sad because Dewdrop / Piper Niven is probably one of the best female wrestlers that they have. And she did so good in the Mae Young Classic and so much stuff like that. But it wasn't exactly the best match on there. And for it to be Becky Lynch and for it to be Dewdrop and stuff. And you kind of knew exactly how it was going to go simply because of the fact that it's WrestleMania season and Becky Lynch isn't just going to lose to Dewdrop, even though Dewdrop did, present herself as an imposing threat. But it just wasn't exactly, it didn't hit or tick all the boxes that I thought it would. And I hate to say that, but that's just kind of how I felt about that match. Becky won, and that's just it. So, yeah. I wish they could present Dewdrop a little bit better than they have, but, that's just where we are. And when it comes to the Women's Royal Rumble, I enjoyed it very much. In the sense that I was really happy to see a lot of the older people that came back. Sasha Banks came out as number one for the second time in a row because she came out as number one in the very first Women's Royal Rumble. And of course, when she came out for the first Women's Royal Rumble, she was dressed up like Wonder Woman. This year, she was dressed up like Sailor Moon, and it was the most perfect gear I had ever seen. Makazi knows her, and it's like, of course, because they're married to each other, but at the same time, it's just like, when he designs stuff for everybody else, he does give them that flair and stuff, but when it comes to his queen, his lady, he's gonna make sure she comes out there looking right, and she did. That Sailor Moon gear was so beautiful. It was everything it needed to be. She had the hair barrettes and everything. Like, she had the skirt. Her boots looked like the Sailor Moon, the red Sailor Moon boots and everything. Like, it was just so cute. And even like her Sasha Banks on the back of her trunks, was in the design of the Sailor Moon logo. Like, it was just really nice. So I was happy that she was able to do that. And then the fact that in number 2 you had Melina, that made me so happy too, because I didn't think I would ever see Melina in the WWE again. And the fact that she was there, even though it was short and she got eliminated really quickly, that's something I really hated though. But I was really happy to see Melina, and the fact that this Royal Rumble was in St. Louis. And St. Louis has a special place in my heart because that's where I actually met Melina and actually met Mickie James during NWA Empower Weekend. Like, the fact that those two were there and in St. Louis, and then they went on to do and be a part of this Women's Royal Rumble match, in St. Louis, it was almost like I literally said that St. Louis and women's wrestling just have good juju, because I was just so happy to see her, and then her gear was really cute, and she did the split, and I was just like, come on, Melina, come on. Like, I hope at some point she is open to coming back to WWE, like part-time or even full-time, because I was really intrigued to see Melina versus Sasha Banks, but Melina got eliminated really fast, and then Sasha Banks proceeded to show everybody that she could hit a split too, much to the happiness of a lot of men and probably women too. So it was really interesting, and I was just like, oh, come on, Sasha, show what you can do in terms of splits and stuff. That was cool, but I just really hated that Melina got kicked out. And then you had Michelle McCool come back, of course, and then you had Ivory come back, but it wasn't regular Ivory, it was Right to Censor Ivory. And a lot of what she was saying kind of fits a lot of what a lot of old school or more so conservative women would say to women now who they feel like are kind of just a little bit too free or liberal with themselves and their bodies and stuff. But that's why she got eliminated so quick. But at the same time, it was still funny. And then of course you had Impact Knockouts champion Mickie James come back and be a part of it too. And I never thought I would hear the song Hardcore Country in WWE, but it was so cool, and I'm glad that she lasted as long as she did in that match too. I was kind of hoping maybe she would win just because of the fact that she made it sound so intriguing on the Impact episode before the Royal Rumble, where she was talking about how cool it would be if she did win and then make it title for title depending on who she decided to face. That would have been interesting as F, but that didn't happen. But it's okay, because at least she can say that she did it and she made history on behalf of Impact and history on behalf of women's wrestling as a whole. That woman just does not stop doing great things. She is a GOAT of our time, and I will die on that hill. And I'm just so proud of Mickie James. I'm so proud of her. I'll never stop being proud of her. She's so cool. And I love that Cameron from the Funkadactyls came back when her girl bye gear, and the fact that she was out there and then Sonya Deville decided to mess with her, and then Naomi came back to check on her, and then she proceeded to eliminate Sonya, but then Sonya was still messing with Naomi, basically furthering their feud. And I'm just like, girl, I'm sick of you. Like, Naomi already beat Sonya in a one-on-one match. Like, what else does Sonya have for her? Like, I'm just really tired of Sonya just acting like she has such a problem with her and not respecting her just because, you know, she's in charge and abusing her power. Like, I'm really sick of it. Like, I just hate it. Like, and then for her to even come up with a cockamamie reason as if to say she doesn't like her. Like, oh yeah, you're just this girl with main character energy and I don't like it. Girl, no. It's something deeper than that. And it's just getting on my nerves. And I also hate how Naomi can't attack her with a jacket on, but then somebody else who came back was able to attack her with a jacket on. And I'll talk about that in SmackDown, but it was just annoying as heck. And I was really happy to see Alicia Fox back in the Royal Rumble match as well. Even though a lot of people were kind of disrespecting her and not saying, oh, she's not a legend and all the other mess. No, like, she's really good. And I just feel like a lot of her personal demons got in her way. But all in all, she will always be the first and only Black Divas champion. And nobody can ever take that away from her. She's amazing. And yeah. And then I loved how her and the Bella twins had their little Team Bella moment, but then they proceeded to eliminate her out of the match. I was like, God dang. And of course, Bianca Belair was there, and that was one of my main people who I was rooting for to possibly win, and be like a 2-time Royal Rumble winner. But alas, she didn't win because Charlotte has to rain on everybody's parade, and she had to be, you know, the next to last person left in the match. Yeah, like, I just really enjoyed the women's Royal Rumble match. It was really good. And then the fact is Queen Zelina eliminated Sasha Banks. Like, that's something I did not expect at all. And I love Zelina's gear as well, because I know it's a warrior from Naruto whose name I can't remember right now. But at the same time, I know who the warrior is. It was a warrior who successfully fought against like over 20 men or something like that. Because my boyfriend showed it to me. But her gear was amazing, and I was really happy to see her, you know, have that moment and eliminate Sasha, even though I love Sasha and stuff. But it's okay. Ronda Rousey came back, and there had been rumors and rumblings going on about it for like all that week, but I didn't necessarily lean into them that much. It's like I had seen them, but I didn't necessarily want to believe it until I saw it, because of course, you know, dirt sheets can say things, but those things doesn't necessarily mean, just because they say it doesn't necessarily mean it's true. So I was gonna wait and see, because I thought this was kind of poetic in the sense that when it came to the first Women's Royal Rumble, that Asuka won, and Asuka had the opportunity to face either Charlotte or Alexa Bliss. Ronda Rousey made her debut after the Women's Royal Rumble that year, and then she decides to participate this year. And just only a few months ago, she had her baby with her husband, and congratulations to her and him for that. But I just wasn't expecting her to participate in the match. Like, I was hoping that if she was going to return, that maybe she would return during the pay-per-view, but not necessarily like in the match. But once she became a part of the Women's Royal Rumble match, it was kind of apparent to me what was about to happen. And that bummed me out because I was really hoping that maybe, just maybe, somebody else was going to win who had actually been in the company for a long period of time, or like or actually trying to win a championship match that, you know, that really was looking to beat either Becky or Charlotte. And that's not to say that Ronda doesn't necessarily deserve it, because she still has beef with them from the last time we saw them fight. But that was like WrestleMania 35 years ago. A lot has changed. But I didn't necessarily, like, as much as I love Ronda Rousey and I loved her first run when she was a Raw Women's Champion, and a lot of the matches that she did have, like especially the one that she had with Sasha, and then a couple of other matches that she had, I didn't necessarily feel like it was necessary for her to win. Wow, I didn't necessarily feel like it was necessary for, that's a lot. But I didn't feel like it was necessarily the best move for her to win the Royal Rumble. I wanted maybe Bianca Belair to win a second time, even though she's okay without it, or maybe Liv Morgan to win the Royal Rumble because she had never won it, or maybe even Mickie James. Like, those were really my top 3 picks to win, and Naomi was my 4th pick to win. But the idea that Ronda won it, when just off of her name alone she could just challenge somebody and just do it, was just kind of, it kind of made me a little bit sad. But I won't, you know, say that I outright, you know, hate that Ronda Rousey is there and that she sucks and all this other stuff. Like, that's not how I feel. Because I was a fan of Ronda Rousey in the UFC, and I thought it would be cool if she did, when she was talking about her wrestling fandom, and if she did decide to come to WWE, I was going to be welcoming to it because I actually loved her, and her fighting style and how she was able to adapt so well, you know, to the wrestling style back then. And even her debut match, you know, with Kurt Angle when she fought against Triple H and Stephanie in WrestleMania New Orleans that time. I thought that was cool. But yeah, no one's gonna ever get me to, you know, I don't hate Ronda Rousey. I just don't. I love Ronda Rousey. But she won, and now she had an opportunity to choose who she was gonna face, and she chose Charlotte. So she's gonna fight Charlotte at WrestleMania. So I think that's gonna be interesting to see. I'm not mad about it. Whatever. That's going to be the match. It's cool. It's money. Fine. It's whatever. I'm cool with it. And then with the men's Royal Rumble, this is the one I hated the most, because Brock Lesnar basically pulled a Becky Lynch, even though Becky Lynch did take Lana's spot because Lana was injured or whatever, in that Royal Rumble that she wound up winning. It's just like he pulled a Becky Lynch and basically inserted himself as number 30 and eliminated a bunch of people, including Bad Bunny, in order to win. And Johnny Knoxville was cool in the match too, even though he wound up getting eliminated or whatever. But, and I love seeing Bad Bunny in the match because, oh my God, it was just really cool. Because I didn't think he would have time to come back in the midst of his tour and everything. But he really did make the time to come back. And he hit the Bunny Destroyer on Matt Riddle, and that was so cool. And I literally feel like when it comes to celebrities in WWE, he's bar none has to be the greatest celebrity wrestler of all time, and it's not even close. It's not even close. Bad Bunny is literally the best celebrity wrestler of all time, because he actually did what a lot of people like Bow Wow and Soulja Boy claimed they would do, but didn't have the actual passion to do it. Like, Bad Bunny did this, and he is living his dream, and it is so cool. So big ups to Bad Bunny. I love that he surprised everybody and actually, you know, participating in it. And yeah, and then Shane McMahon came back, but then that was a whole thing that I don't even want to discuss at this point. So, but I discussed it in News and Gossipish, so it's whatever. But yeah, Brock Lesnar wound up winning the Royal Rumble, and then he got to choose who he's gonna face, and he chose Roman Reigns. But then, even though he chose Roman Reigns to fight for the Universal title to get his revenge and stuff, it's like he inserted himself into the Elimination Chamber match for the WWE Championship, you know, that Brock Lesnar is in, and now Seth Rollins and Riddle and someone else is in too. So it's just kind of like, what's the point in that? Like, why are you being greedy? Like, stop. Like, it just gets on my nerves. But yeah, that's pretty much how I felt about this year's Royal Rumble. It was kind of a lot of hits and misses for me. But at the same time, I'm not angry that Ronda Rousey won it. I just really would have preferred for somebody else to win it. So, I mean, whatever. Like, we're on the road to WrestleMania. I'm going to still be excited for it regardless. So, here we are. So that's all. Those are all of my feelings about the Royal Rumble. And now we're going to go into our weekly recaps. Okay, so I was sitting with my friends one day and they asked me, Stephanie, how do you record your podcast? And I said, with the Anchor app on my phone. And they were like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, it's that simple. It is absolutely free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone and your computer. And it will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. You can also make money from the podcast with no minimum listenership. And it's got everything you need to make a podcast in one place. They even have classes and stuff that you can listen to that will give you all kinds of good tips on what you need to do in order to make the best podcast. So if you want to do this, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's anchor.fm or download the free Anchor app to get started. All right, so in a little bit of a change, I do want to talk about and recap some of the stuff last week that I did like in wrestling in light of the Royal Rumble and some of the stuff that I didn't like. I only watched a little bit of Raw. I was only able to watch a little bit of Raw because I wasn't feeling well, so I actually wound up going to sleep on, like, say, I believe right around 8:30 was where I went to sleep on Raw. But something that I didn't necessarily like about Raw was the fact that Brock Lesnar sort of finessed his way into the Elimination Chamber match with Bobby Lashley as the champion and with Seth Rollins, Riddle, and I believe Kevin Owens as a part of the Elimination Chamber match. I felt weird about him finessing his way into that after he made clear that he was going to be facing Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. And I understand giving him something to do or whatever. And of course, you know, feeding into the idea that a lot of people in Saudi Arabia sort of like a lot of, they like something that draws them to it is a little bit like nostalgia of older wrestlers and stuff like that. But at the same time, I still felt weird about that. And I was just like, bro, you just won the Royal Rumble. Why we got to deal with you doing this too? Trying to win another title on top of that. And it's just kind of like, what's the end goal here? Like, are you trying to beat Bobby yet again and, have that title and then beat Roman for his title and possibly combine the titles, or just hold both of them and be Brock 2 belts, or what? Like, it's just getting on my nerves at this point. It's like, we already had to deal with you beating Big E because you got put in that fatal 4-way and it got turned to a fatal 5-way due to Roman Reigns having COVID and stuff, which was nothing that anybody could do. But still, it just feels like he's just sort of, you know, just planting his foot everywhere and just, you know, tracking himself everywhere. And it's just like, bro, like, at what point are we just gonna like chill out on him a little bit? But that's where we are now, so it's whatever. So yeah. And then something that I did like was the idea that Ronda Rousey came back, but a lot of people weren't really that excited about it. And then she came back on Raw and addressed the idea that she could have the option of choosing Charlotte or choosing Becky Lynch. And in the midst of that, Becky Lynch wound up being challenged by Lita at Elimination Chamber, which I think is really cool because this is a dream match that a lot of wrestling fans online have been talking about, you know, since I believe Becky was the person who eliminated Lita in the first Women's Royal Rumble match. So I am really excited that this is happening. Now, it would be cool if Lita were to win the Raw Women's title, and then we would have maybe Bianca versus Lita. But then I really feel like Becky might have Lita's number, because with with everything that happened on SmackDown with Ronda choosing Charlotte officially for WrestleMania, Becky's going to need a WrestleMania opponent. And I feel like it really has to be Bianca, because the writing is just definitely on the wall. Bianca has been beating everybody left and right. She was a sole survivor at Survivor Series. Like, she had a good showing in this Royal Rumble match, even though she did not win. But at the same time, it's just like, she really wants to avenge those 26 seconds and prove that she really can beat Becky. And it's clear that Becky just keeps ducking her, because that was how Dewdrop was able to be a number one contender for that title. So it's just, it's literally, the writing is literally on the wall for Bianca to have another opportunity to either be a main event of WrestleMania again, or just basically just, have a really great match with Becky and beat her for that title. And it would just be really cool. And it would be vengeance for that SummerSlam hiccup that we all just absolutely hate. So yeah, that's cool. I also really liked on NXT 2.0 how Mandy Rose came out with Toxic Attraction, and they were all being, their regular hot selves and everything. But Mandy was talking about how she basically rules the division at this point, and she was challenged by Kaylee Ray, but Kaylee Ray was basically saying that she wants an opportunity at the title, but she kept telling her no. But weirdly enough, as Kaylee Ray was acting like she was going to attack her, Toxic Attraction ran away, and then they went backstage, into an SUV, not knowing that Kaylee Ray was the one who was driving the SUV with the other two girls in it. So Gigi and JC were basically, taken away, while Mandy Rose just, watched it. And throughout the episode, she was running away from Kaylee Ray with her baseball bat and everything, because Kaylee wasn't stopping at all wasn't like, she was going to do anything she could to possibly get herself a title shot. And she even went as far as to chasing Mandy Rose around, and Mandy Rose even fell into the arms of, not Idris Enofe, but his partner Malik Blade, who apparently has a really big crush on her, which I think is really funny. But she was saying, look, you have to help me. But she just kept running away. And just when she thought she got away from her, that was when she stopped in the kitchen and sat down. But then Kaylee Ray actually attacked her with a bowl of spaghetti and poured it all over her really cute outfit that looks like she got it from Fashion Nova, but it's whatever. It was still cute. And then she threw cake on her and everything. And then she was running away even more, to the point to where they finally met back up in the ring. And Kaylee Ray was saying, give me my match. And finally, Mandy Rose acquiesced Kaylee Ray's wishes, and now they're both set to fight each other either next week or within the next 2 weeks, maybe at Vengeance Day. I'm not sure, I forgot, but I am happy about that. I think that's going to be interesting to see how Mandy Rose's improvements as an athlete will actually stack up against Kaylee Ray and her strong style in terms of, the UK. And then just the fact that she's going to be fighting one of the longest reigning, women's champions in the modern era in terms of, the NXT UK women's title. So that's going to be really interesting, and I'm interested in that. And then something else that I love on NXT 2.0 was the fact that we saw more of Wendy Chu. I know a lot of people were kind of weirded out by the idea of her character just kind of running around and sleeping or whatever. But at the same time, there was more to her than just being the sleepy girl who drinks water or whatever type of herbal teas that she used in order for her to take a nap. And in her match, in the last few matches that she's had, even with this week where she was fighting Amari Miller, it was, really cool because first of all, Amari Miller was paid by Tiffany Stratton to beat up on Wendy Chu because I guess she thinks Wendy Chu is lame or weird or whatever. And she said, look, if you beat her, then I will take you on a shopping spree, and then I'll give you this credit card because she's a rich little daddy's girl. So Amari Miller said yes. And so that's what led to this match with Wendy Chu. And I just really love the fact that Wendy Chu utilizes all of her sleeping tactics. Like, she uses sleeping poses to sort of go into wrestling moves. And I think that is just the cutest thing. And it really shows dedication to her sleeping character. And I really enjoy it. And she's just really cute. And I just love it. Like, it's really cool. And I know this is going to lead up to her and Tiffany Stratton, you know, inevitably fighting against each other, but I'm here for it. And Tiffany Stratton's character is really cool too, but at the same time it really gives me like Barbie vibes. As a former girl who really loved Barbie dolls back in the day, I think it's really cool to see that happen in a sense. It's like a Barbie mixed in with Clueless, but then mixed in with an athlete as well. So it's cute, and I can't wait to see what they're able to do. And then, of course, I love Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams. Like, that's literally it. Like, I will always love them. Like, there is nothing that they can do wrong at this point. Like, they're great. They're just really, really great. Yeah. And then as far as SmackDown goes, something else that I quasi liked, but then quasi kind of didn't like, was just the idea that Ricochet fought Ridge Holland in a one-on-one match and wound up winning said match, but then they booked another tag team match with Ricochet and Cesaro having to fight Sheamus and Ridge Holland, only for them to lose. And I think that kind of undermined Ricochet's, you know, much needed victory, because he had been losing over the past couple of weeks. And just the idea of them, you know, losing like that, him losing right after he won, was just kind of like, bro, like, y'all really don't care about Ricochet at all. Y'all care nothing about his feelings. And I'm just like, if y'all gonna find something for Ricochet to do, just give him something else, because this feud really isn't doing it for me at all. And then something else I liked was the fact that Aaliyah found another way to beat Natalya, who is really irritated at the idea that Aaliyah has, you know, a record over her in terms of beating her in 3.17 seconds. Aaliyah 3:17. And she beat her via countout, but something that's going to come out of this is the fact that next week, Natalya and Aaliyah are set to fight on SmackDown yet again, but this time in a dungeon style match where it's only pinfall or submission. And I know that Aaliyah had been training in NXT for such a long period of time before she was called up to the main roster, and there's still, you know, and there's a lot that she can do in the ring in terms of athleticism. This match seems to favor Natalya more simply because of the fact that she is trained in the dungeon style. Like, she is a heart through and through. It's in her blood. So I feel like, you know, like, I just don't know exactly how this is going to go, considering, you know, there's no count out and all that other stuff in that match. But I am intrigued. And then I'm also intrigued at the idea that Mia Yim was backstage and protecting Aaliyah from getting attacked, in the sense because she just can't stand bullies. So I'm wondering if they're feeding into a possible feud between Natalya and, not Mia Yim, Xia Li. I am so sorry. Mia Yim was let go of WWE, but I'm so sorry, but that's Xia Li. Like, and I'm just really interested in seeing how that's gonna go. Yeah, like, that's gonna be really cool if they let that happen. But something that I didn't like about SmackDown was the fact that you saw Shotzi being backstage and sort of, you know, gallivanting backstage with somebody, you know, and taking pictures or whatever. And I'm just like, what happened to aggressive Shotzi, who was just in Sasha Banks' face a couple of months ago? Like, where has she been? Like, I need more of her in my life, because I love her and she's really talented, and I just feel like she should be involved in SmackDown a lot more than she is. Also, something that sort of feeds into the whole Naomi and Sonya Deville beef. Sonya was so scared and so shook of Naomi, even though she won't admit it, that she put Naomi in a championship match against Charlotte next week in New Orleans. And Adam Pearce was actually co-signed with it as well. But something that I hate is the fact that Sonya was always hiding behind the whole "you can't touch me if I have on a coat" thing. But then later on at the end of SmackDown, you saw Ronda Rousey picking up and roughhousing Sonya Deville even without a coat, which leads me to the idea that I really feel like there's a really deeper reason as to why Sonya Deville does not like Naomi, and it has to be something other than, oh well, I don't like you just because you have main character energy. Like, a part of me really feels like if you would be more than willing to fight or get in the face of Ronda Rousey, who is actually an MMA fighter, with your jacket on, but not Naomi, that sort of leads me to the idea that you really might not like Naomi because she's black. Like, it's giving you really don't like her, and you keep, stacking the goalposts against her because she's a black girl or black woman. Like, that's really what it gives off to me. And I know a lot of my listeners might feel like that's a little bit low, but considering I'm a black woman and I know what it's like to sort of, be undermined and stuff like that, and having a goalpost, set against you over and over again, even in life and in society, regardless to people trying to tell you the contrary, it just feels like Sonya Deville really has something deeper against her other than the fact that she's just jealous of her. And it's just like, ma'am, like, it's so you let Ronda be up on you with the jacket on, but not Naomi. But whatever. I was just glad somebody roughhoused Sonya up, and it was Ronda, but it's whatever, because Sonya was all like, I guess you haven't been here for a while. I'm in charge and you'll fight when I say, and all this other stuff. And I was just glad somebody beat her up, because God, Jesus, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of her. And then the fact that Charlotte was so savage as to say that the SmackDown to Ronda, that the SmackDown Women's title is her baby, and she's actually pretty unlike yours. Like, that was a low blow. Like, why you gotta bring her child into it? Because I'm pretty sure you'd be mad if she brought Andrade into your business. But whatever. I am excited that it's going to be Ronda versus Charlotte, even though a lot of people might not feel that way, but I am excited about that. So that was pretty much kind of what I liked with SmackDown and stuff like that. And of course, I love every time Paul Heyman gets on the microphone and talk, because he's just one of the most brilliant minds in all of wrestling. And I feel like if I could take a masterclass in wrestling and in cutting promos from him, I would willingly take it. Because just hearing him talk about Roman Reigns and just putting anybody over the way that he does, he's just so eloquent. And I just want more of him in my life. Like, I need him to introduce me whenever I come into a room. That's how much I love Papa Paul. Okay? Paul Heyman is the GOAT. I love him. So, and then something else in wrestling that I really loved was that AEW match on Rampage between Ricky Starks and Jay Lethal. And I know there is some type of weird, dark accusations going on with Jay Lethal, but from a wrestler's perspective, I can see why. He's very respected in terms of his athleticism. But definitely Ricky Starks impressed me as well, because this is really my first time seeing him wrestle. I had always seen him, cut promos and do commentary on Rampage and stuff like that. But as far as wrestling, I hadn't really seen him wrestle before. So him in this match with Jay Lethal for the FTW championship was really cool. And I was really happy to see, on an AEW show, two black men, main event that. So that was really good. And I'm hoping that in the future, AEW can continue to improve on them featuring diverse people in storylines, in major storylines involving championships like that. Like, when are you going to have an AEW, an AEW world champion contender that isn't, just the average white male that we always see all the time? Like, I'm waiting for that. Like, I really am. But I mean, I am happy that Jade Cargill is the TBS champion and is the inaugural one as well. But at the same time, like, there's still so much more that they can do. And, here's hoping that they do, get that together. So that's really everything that I kind of liked in wrestling this week from Raw, a little bit of Raw, NXT 2.0, SmackDown, and a little bit of Rampage. I know this recap was a little bit different, but there's been a lot going on in my life that I've been making room for and stuff, and a lot that I've been preparing for. So I wasn't able to do the full-on weekly recaps, show by show that I normally do. But please bear with your girl. I'm just in the midst of a lot of various life changes right now, but hopefully I can get back to it at some point in some capacity. So that's the end of what I liked in wrestling this week. All right. Well, thank you for listening to this episode of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. I know it's not as long as it normally is, but I still wanted to, put forth an effort to put out a second episode to talk about my feelings about the Royal Rumble and everything that happened before and after that in news and gossipish and stuff. But like I said, I'm going through some life changes right now and preparing for different things to put the podcast out there, because with Comic-Con happening this coming weekend at the BJCC in Birmingham here, I'm going to have a fan table for the first time. And with the fan table, there's just stuff that you have to prepare for electronically. And I'm going to be showing a lot of my interviews on my smart television that I have. And I'm going to be giving away goodies like pins and business cards and stuff like that. So if you want to drop by my fan table, then please, if you're going to Comic-Con, please come out. I would really appreciate it if you wanted to visit me and talk wrestling or talk anime in wrestling and so many different things. Please come visit me. Like, I'm friendly. I'll talk to you. And then we can teach each other stuff and bridge the gap. So that would be really awesome. And yeah, I'm just, still trying to navigate doing various interviews with people this month and stuff, and preparing to also celebrate the 2nd anniversary of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast as well as, juggle my time with Women's Wrestling Talk, the number one women's wrestling show on the planet, and the Belladonna division stuff as well. So I'm just really just trying to juggle everything while also still taking care of my family, because of course my mom fell ill and she is recovering really well, and I'm grateful for everyone who's reached out and said something to me and given me thoughts and prayers and stuff like that and good vibes, and I'll continue to receive those. So there's just been a lot going on in my life, but I'm gonna still try to be as consistent as I can, but please bear with me if I'm not as consistent as I used to be. But there's just so much in my career that's growing while my life is going through various changes. But I'm still watching wrestling. I'm still, taking in the various trends and everything. And of course, I'm also going to still be posting throughout the month of February for Black History Month as well. So please enjoy those and share those and retweet those as you see them if you feel moved by any of them. And just take the opportunity to learn about the contributions of various African and African American wrestlers this month. Because, we do dope stuff all the time in wrestling, whether we're wrestlers, referees, writers, commentators. So yeah, just check us out and learn about our contributions and stuff. So with that in mind, please know that you can listen to the Hardy Wrestling Podcast everywhere you get your podcasts, as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and even my YouTube channel, The Hardy Wrestling Podcast. And know that you can follow the Hardy Wrestling Podcast on Instagram at Hardy Wrestling Podcast and on Twitter at Hardy Wrestle Pod. And you can check out any other stuff that I'm doing with Women's Wrestling Talk on Instagram and Twitter at WW Talk Pod. And just check out the Belladonna division on Instagram and Twitter at Belladonna Diviz or Belladonna Division. So with that in mind, thank you for listening to this episode of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. And until next time, bye y'all.